All right, man, this is an honor, a privilege. This guy right here is I call him one of the biggest icons of basketball because he has a name, a move that's named after him. God Shammgod, how you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing good. How you doing?
All right, first off, I'm pretty sure you get asked this all the time. You actually have a move, a patented move that is named after yourself. Can you tell me the genesis of that move and where that started and how did that become for you?
It just came, doing some stuff in the game and making a mistake, and then turning a mistake into an advantage. By me losing the ball one time. But I used to watch video all the time, and then I looked at it on film, and then I'm like, man, this probably could work. And then the next day in the gym, I just practice, and then it just took on a life of its own.
All right, so a lot of people think with the crossover, it's just being stylish, being fancy, but it's a fundamental part to this too. How important for ball handlers? Important to have, I see you work with these guys out here with both hands. How important is ball handling to you outside of just being fancy? What do you
I just think ball handling is the key asset to the game. I've always been told, by the great Tiny Archibald that used to play with Boston Celtics. He was my coach in junior high school, so he used to always tell me, if you could dribble and you could get anywhere on the court at any time, you'll always be an asset to a team. It's just that over the last maybe 6 years, it's just really turned into an evolution where, when the NBA changed the rules and stuff like that to more skills, that basketball became more of a necessity than it was even when I played. When I played, you had Shaq, you had Akeem Olajuwon, you had big men, you had to throw the ball down to and stuff like that. I always joke with my moms, like, man, I was born 20 years too early. Man, I wish I was in this era right here.
All right, speaking of this era, can you name me a couple of guards, or maybe 3 or 4 guards that you can think of when you look at their handle? It's amazing that what you see.
Kyrie is one. Chris Paul is one. Steph Curry is one. The one I like the most, probably out of all of them, would probably be a surprise. Of course, Kyrie is at the top of my list, but I think James Harden is a great dribbler and kind of similar to how when I dribble, because people don't understand how good you have to be to change direction, change speeds and stuff like that. And I think right now in the NBA, he probably do it the best by putting on the brakes and then changing and going into another direction and things like that. So people don't really look at that in terms of dribbling, but that's, to me, is like the most important part is footwork, with dribbling and things like that, because everything is in the footwork. The hands and all that, that's just to keep you distracted and stuff like that. But the key is the footwork and how you put on the brakes to stop and change angles and stuff like that.
All right, last question. And, when you talked about Tiny Archibald, one of the greats, I think he's the last guy in NBA history to average, 30 and 10.
Yeah, he led the league in scoring and assists.
In assists. I think he's one of the last guys to do that.
He's the only guy to ever.
He's actually the only, and that's amazing, and for his size as well. Because a lot of guys, when you talk about Allen Iverson and Isaiah Thomas, it's him. But could you name another guard that you looked up to?
When I grew up, Tiny Archibald wasn't even my idol. I could tell you a funny story. When I first met Tiny Archibald, I was in practice in elementary, and he was a gym teacher, and I was doing some dribbling stuff, and he was like, "Man, you shouldn't do that." And I was actually said to him, I was like, "Who is this old dude telling me how to play? What the hell do you think he is?" And he never said nothing. And like I said, I was a guy that watched film. So I went home and I was watching Below the Rim. I don't even know if they still have this video. It was on cassette, Below the Rim.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Kevin Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Tim Hardaway, Magic Johnson. But in the middle of it, they always go back to old school.
Uh-huh.
So in the middle of it, they showed Tiny Archibald. And I went back to school the next day and I was like, well, why you didn't tell me you played NBA? He said, you young guys think you know everything. So he didn't say nothing. But growing up, my idol was Kevin Johnson. And that's still my idol. I used to thought Kevin Johnson was the best point guard ever, because he never took a shot. He never really took threes. Everything was pull-ups. He had the best inside-out crossover between the legs. And when I was in high school, I always used to do inside-out between the legs crossover. And I just loved Kevin Johnson. Then when I got older, in college, Kenny Anderson, was the world's greatest guard. And I really, started looking at Isaiah Thomas, when I got in the NBA and I started looking at his old stuff, and I was like, he's pretty good too. But growing up, it was Kevin Johnson and Kenny Anderson was the world to me, you know, at that point. So, you know, that's the people I looked at.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, now.
Thank you.
Brother.
Yep.